HOA, let my dog die. Over a locked faucet now. Their board is being investigated for negligence. Max had never liked the heat, but he tolerated it for my sake. That day, the Arizona sun bore down like it held a personal grudge against the earth, pressing its weight onto rooftops and skin alike. The sidewalk shimmered with that familiar wavering blur, as if the world was slightly out of tune. I remember thinking, absurdly, that the cactus by the mailbox looked thirsty. Our neighborhood was the kind that prided itself on restraint. Beige homes, beige fences, beige people. Everything polished, muted, and measured. Nothing out of place. The Homeowners Association, or HOA as we knew them, enforced this order like it was gospel. Weekly emails, monthly fines, smiles like customer service masks. I had lived there for 5 years. Max, for all of them. He was a mutt in the best possible way. Too big to be ignored, too gentle to be feared. We shared quiet rituals, walks at dusk, ice cubes in his bowl when the heat spiked, sitting together by the tiny strip of synthetic grass the HOA allowed as a natural element. That afternoon, the sky was cloudless, painfully bright. I was repotting a cactus that had somehow survived my inattention. Max nosed around, tail sweeping slowly, head tilted. He sniffed at the edge of the lawn and sneezed. I smiled, not knowing that the moment would be the last normal one we'd ever share. The HOA had recently hired a new landscaping company. They came early in the mornings. No notice, no warning, spraying weeds and trimming bushes deemed too unruly for community standards. That morning they'd sprayed again. I didn't see them do it. I never did. But Max had. And now the countdown had already begun. It started with a cough. Not a bark, not a whimper, a sound too foreign to belong to Max. I turned my head instinctively, the ceramic pot still in my hands, dirt falling through my fingers like sand in an hourglass. He stood on the edge of our driveway, legs tense, body angled oddly like something inside him was resisting gravity. His eyes were the first thing that told me something was wrong. Usually warm, alert, almost human in their expressiveness, now clouded. He looked up at me as if asking a question I didn't understand. Then he dropped to the ground. I didn't remember running to him. The distance between us collapsed in an instant, and suddenly I was on my knees beside him, calling his name, my voice cracking with disbelief. Max's body trembled violently as he tried to stand again, only to collapse sideways with a painful wheeze. His tongue lolled unnaturally. Foam, thick, stringy, pooled at the corners of his mouth. His breath came in gasps, shallow and ragged, like a machine struggling against rust. I touched his flank, and his muscles jumped beneath my hand. There are moments the human mind recognizes as pivotal, when the present fractures and your instincts drag you forward into decision before thought can catch up. This was one. I remembered the grass, the landscaping team, the HOA's obsession with order, the yellow warning flag they sometimes placed, never on time, never consistently, if they used pesticides. I hadn't seen one that day. I didn't have confirmation. I didn't need it. He'd been poisoned. Okay, I whispered to myself, to him, to the heat. My phone was on the porch. The vet was 15 minutes away if traffic was light, and I knew Max didn't have 15. I lifted him carefully, his weight limp but heavy. His heartbeat was wild under my arm, like a trapped bird in a cage. The nearest help was a hose, the public utility faucet at the end of the block, by the tennis court, the only water source not locked behind a private gate. Max needed to vomit. He needed to flush. He needed to live. I ran. I must have looked insane to the neighbors watching from behind their blinds, a man in a sweat-soaked shirt sprinting down a sunlit suburban street with a half-conscious dog in his arms, muttering desperate prayers like a mantra. But no one came out. By the time I reached the spigot, Max was barely twitching. His eyes fluttered, unfocused. I dropped to my knees, reached for the handle, and stopped. It was locked, not jammed, not broken, padlocked, sealed with a thick, gleaming clamp and a laminated sign zip tied to the pipe. Community notice: unauthorized use of water is prohibited. Violation will result in a $500 fine. Requests for water access must be submitted 24 hours in advance. HOA Compliance Committee. I stared at the words. Read them again, as if reading slower would make them mean something different. My hands shook. Max whimpered faintly, a sound so unlike his usual self, so pitiful, It tore something in me open. The heat shimmered around us, oppressive and cruel. The scent of cut grass, hot plastic, and dying hope. No, 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 no. I stood, looked around. Houses, lawns, driveways, every one of them identical, every one of them silent. I pounded on the nearest door. Nothing. Next one. Nothing, I screamed. Please, I need water. My dog is dying. Curtains twitched. A door opened, then closed again before I could reach it. I saw a phone lifted behind a window, recording, maybe calling someone, maybe just saving the drama for later. Max convulsed. I grabbed my phone, dialed the HOA emergency number, the only contact I had, because no one ever gave us real names, just contacts. After 2 rings, a voice answered, saccharine and sterile. This is Patricia, Community Relations Officer. How may I assist you? My dog is dying. He's been poisoned, probably your landscapers. He needs water now. The public tap is locked. Please unlock it. A pause. I could hear clicking, typing, maybe. Or indifference. I'm sorry, sir, but all utility water is restricted for scheduled maintenance and conservation efforts. Did you submit a request? My voice broke. HES dying. I understand this is upsetting, she replied, as if reading from a script designed to manage complaints. But water access requires a 24-hour notice, as outlined in Section 7B of the HOA regulations. Unauthorized use is... I didn't hear the rest. I hung up. I screamed again. A guttural, helpless sound that I'd only ever heard in war films and animal documentaries. The sound of something breaking that can't be put back. Max convulsed once more, then went still. I pressed my ear to his side. Nothing. The air became impossibly still. The world, once cruel in its noise, suddenly deafening in its silence. I held him there, on that patch of concrete shaded by nothing but guilt, his fur still warm, his collar digging into my wrist as I rocked him. Not to soothe him. He was past soothing, but because I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not ever, really. I only realized someone else was there when I heard the click of high heels on pavement. Slow, deliberate. I looked up. A woman stood just 10 feet away, framed against the identical beige homes like a statue of suburban righteousness. She held a phone in one hand, iced coffee in the other. Her name tag shimmered in the light. Patricia, HOA compliance chair. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me. Then at Max. Sir, she said, her tone clipped. This is not an approved pet activity zone. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My entire body went numb. If you feel this incident was caused by HOA actions, she continued, checking her watch, you may submit a formal grievance by email. Responses are typically processed within 7 to 10 business days. She turned. She walked away. And that was it. There are things a mind does to protect itself. It softens the edges. It dims the light. It rearranges chronology to make the unbearable feel just a little more survivable. The moment Max died, I thought that would be the worst of it. But it wasn't. The worst came later, in the stillness. In the hours after I carried him home, wrapped in an old flannel shirt, arms numb with something far heavier than weight, I washed his bowl, left it out anyway. I vacuumed the rug, even though his fur clung to it in strands like ghost threads. I sat on the floor beside his bed long after sunset, unable to turn the light on, unwilling to turn it off. Every creak of the house felt like accusation, but I wasn't sad. Not exactly, not yet. That came later. At first, I was just hollow. The kind of emptiness that doesn't ache, just hovers. The kind that turns hours into fog and minutes into sand. The kind that made me forget my body, was thirsty until I tasted blood in the cracks of my lips. It was around midnight when I remembered the camera. Not mine. Mr. Dillon's, my neighbor across the street. The one who always waved from behind his hydrangeas and never joined the HOA meetings. He'd installed a smart doorbell last fall, after someone stole his Amazon package. I'd helped him install it, or rather, I'd stood on the porch handing him screws while he lectured me about corporate surveillance. I called him. He answered on the second ring. No hello. Just, I saw. I blinked. You did? He cleared his throat. Didn't want to intrude. Thought you might need time. A pause. But I have it. The whole thing. From the moment you ran. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt it hit my wrist. I didn't ask him to send it. He did. 5 minutes later. The video was 6 minutes, 23 seconds long. I watched it once, and then again, and then a third time, this time with the volume turned off, because Max's whimper near the end cracked something I didn't have the tools to fix. There was no ambiguity, no missing context, no room for rationalization. The footage showed me sprinting with Max in my arms, desperate, yelling for help. It showed the locked faucet. It showed Patricia arriving in heels and sunglasses, sipping her iced coffee like she was watching someone violate a noise ordinance. It showed her gesturing to the laminated sign as I knelt over Max's body. It showed her walking away. But the worst part? The sound, her voice, calm, detached, memorized. This is not an approved pet activity zone. I don't remember uploading it. Not exactly. I remember opening my laptop. I remember typing dog dies HOA into Google and seeing nothing helpful. I remember creating a new YouTube account. No profile picture, no name, just something anonymous, something temporary. I titled the video, "My Dog Died Because My HOA Locked the Water Supply." Watch what they said. No music, no narration, just the truth. I posted the link on the local Facebook group, the one where people mostly complained about trash pickup times and asked for air fryer recommendations. Then I went to bed. I didn't sleep. By noon the next day, it had 14,000 views. By sunset, it had passed 300. I woke up to 127 unread messages and a phone battery too hot to touch. People from all over the country had seen it, commented, reposted. A local reporter sent me an email with the subject line, "Do you have time to talk about Max?" I said no. I didn't want to be anyone's headline. I didn't want a platform. I wanted my dog. But the world didn't wait. The subreddit Our Justice Served picked it up first. Then Our Public Freakout. Then Twitter. Then the evening news. Someone ripped the audio and uploaded a slowed version to TikTok captioned, "This HOA killed a dog over a water faucet." Another spliced it into a montage of other HOA horror stories, lawn citations, fine threats, elderly harassment. Max's story became the crescendo, and then came the emails, not from strangers, from neighbors, from people I barely knew, who passed me in silence before, who now sent long paragraphs filled with apologies, rage, and secrets. One had been fined $250 for installing a birdhouse. Another was cited for leaving their garage door open too long. One woman wrote, "They locked the playground water fountains last summer. My son fainted during practice. I never said anything. I'm sorry." By the end of the week, a pattern had emerged. It wasn't about Max anymore. It was about all of us. I got a call from a woman named Eliza. She was a veterinary toxicologist in Tucson, mid-40s, calm voice, clear eyes. She offered to examine Max, said she could determine what killed him, even without necropsy. I hesitated. It felt too final. But she was kind. She came in person. She sat with me in silence while I held Max one last time. She explained gently that the symptoms, the tremors, the drooling, the collapse, were classic indicators of organophosphate poisoning. Common in turf treatments, she said. Cheap ones. I nodded. HOA hired new landscapers. She closed her notebook. Then you'll need paperwork, contracts, proof of chemical use. That night, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the city's Environmental Health Office. It felt like hurling pebbles at a glass wall. Small, slow, impossible. But something inside me, something brittle and sharp, wouldn't let go. I wasn't just grieving. I was holding a ledger. And now, I was turning the page. 3 days later, Patricia called. Not a text. Not an email. A real phone call. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice, no longer clipped, no longer rehearsed, trembled. "We'd like to resolve this quietly. We're deeply sorry for the misunderstanding." I listened to it twice. Once to hear the words. Once to hear what wasn't there. Not once did she say his name. Not once did she say Max. Only this situation. The HOA tried damage control. They issued a public statement full of buzzwords and passive voice. Our hearts go out. In accordance with policy. Unforeseen circumstances. They called it an incident. But the comments shredded it to pieces. "You padlocked life-saving water in a desert." Are you serious? Not unforeseen. Uncaring. This isn't an incident, it's neglect. With a body. By the weekend, news vans lined our street. CNN picked it up. The headline read, "Desert Dog Dies After HOA Blocks Emergency Water Access." I didn't speak to the media, but I left the faucet untouched. Still locked, still sealed, still bearing the sign, because now the world was watching. And I wanted them to see. It's strange how quiet anger can be. Not the kind that throws things or breaks plates, but the kind that seeps, slow and patient, into the cracks of every conversation, every sidewalk smile. That week, our neighborhood didn't shout. It watched. Patricia stopped appearing in public. Her car, once parked perfectly parallel in her driveway, was nowhere to be seen. The HOA office, a converted garage tucked behind a bank of mailboxes, remained locked. The blinds stayed drawn. A closed for maintenance sign appeared on the door, though no work was being done. Still, the mail came. Still, the violations were delivered. But no one paid. Something had shifted. And not just in me. At first, it was little things. The neighbor with the flamingo lawn ornament, who'd been fined $75 for it, put up 2 more. A father who'd been warned about excessive chalk art let his daughter draw a mural across the entire sidewalk. People stopped trimming their hedges. A woman planted wildflowers right in the center of her front lawn and dared anyone to tell her otherwise. No one did. And then came the signs. Water shouldn't kill. Max deserved better. A dog died. A rule survived. They weren't aggressive, just present, hung from balconies, propped on fences, hand-painted with trembling conviction. Quiet indictments in every direction. It was as if we were all finally seeing the same ghost. One morning, I found a man standing at the locked faucet. Older, mid-60s I'd guess, clean-cut, stiff posture. I thought he might be another HOA enforcer at first, maybe someone sent to repaint the curb or scold me for negligence. But he turned, and his face was lined with something softer. He introduced himself as Brian Keller, a former member of the HOA board. He'd resigned 2 months earlier, citing philosophical differences. No one had asked why. Now I knew. "I saw the video," he said quietly, "and I thought, if I don't say something now, I never will." He handed me a folder, thin, manila, taped shut, with a strip of red electrical tape. Inside were printed emails, committee notes, expense logs. At the top of one page, in bold, digital ink, was a name I recognized: Patricia L. Klein, compliance chair. The emails were clinical in tone, but venomous in meaning. If they won't follow protocol, they'll learn the hard way. Dogs don't belong in shared zones. Enforcement must be visible. They'll thank us when the neighborhood wins another beautification award. And the one that stopped me cold, dated 2 days before Max died. Note, water restrictions are an excellent leverage point. Suggest padlock on South Spigot immediately. Brian didn't explain. He didn't need to. "I resigned because I couldn't do it anymore," he said. "I thought I could walk away and forget." But Max didn't get to walk away. His voice broke on that last line. He left without another word. The video now had 3.2 million views. News outlets began circling back, not just for the story, but for blood. People weren't content with outrage anymore. They wanted answers. Accountability. Names. They got them. A group of residents, led by a retired attorney, a nurse, and the chalk artist's father, filed an official complaint with the city's Civil Rights Review Board. They accused the HOA of negligent behavior leading to the death of a companion animal, obstruction of emergency care, and violation of local environmental safety laws. It was the first time anyone had ever sued our HOA. It would not be the last. The city responded faster than anyone expected, probably because of the cameras, the petitions, the relentless digital drumbeat. Within 72 hours, the mayor made a statement. No one, human or animal, should suffer because a faucet was locked. "We are launching an investigation into HOA governance procedures across the city." People clapped in the crowd. I didn't. I just stood there, surrounded by faces I used to pass like ghosts. Some nodded at me. One woman, the same one who once wrote me up for leaving my recycling bin out overnight, squeezed my arm and whispered, "I'm so sorry." And I believed her, not because it helped, but because it mattered. Then came the subpoenas. Patricia was called to testify. So were the remaining board members. It turned out none of them had voted on the faucet locks. The padlocks weren't in the minutes. The budget line item for water compliance had been added retroactively, marked with Patricia's initials. When asked why she'd bypassed the vote, she gave a single answer: "I didn't think it required one." That quote made the headlines. So did the footage of her entering the HOA building in silence, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. No cuffs. Not yet. But the optics were enough. Someone edited a side-by-side photo of her sipping iced coffee beside a still frame of Max on the pavement, captioned, "Regulations over life." I started getting letters, not from lawyers or press, but from strangers, across the country, from towns with different names but identical problems. A man in Florida wrote, "They towed my RV while I was at my wife's funeral. Said it was blocking the street view. I did nothing. I regret it every day. Thank you for not staying silent." A teenager in Texas said, "They made my mom cry over a wreath. Said it wasn't seasonally appropriate. I'm going to college now, studying law. I'm coming for people like her." Each letter was a wound and a balm. Each one made me ache for Max, and for the thousands of small cruelties we pretend are just rules. The day they removed the padlock from the faucet, no one clapped. No one needed to. Instead, someone tied a blue leash to the handle, gently, deliberately, and left a small wooden sign in the grass below it, for Max. That night I sat beside the spigot, no cameras, no media, just me. I turned the water on, just for a moment, watched it splash onto the sidewalk, cold, clear, too late, but there nonetheless. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, the air conditioning hummed with its usual indifference, but in the way the room swallowed sound. Everything echoed too cleanly. Shoes against tile, papers sliding across oak. Even the judge's gavel seemed hesitant, like it didn't want to draw attention. Patricia sat at the defendant's table in a navy blue blazer, no longer in heels, no longer wearing her signature sunglasses. Her hair was pulled back tightly, as if restraint could undo everything else. She didn't look at me, not once. The charges read like they'd been scraped from bureaucratic concrete: sterile, methodical, negligent obstruction of emergency aid, reckless endangerment, violation of municipal health codes. They'd thrown in misuse of authority under private governance bylaws, just to make it sting harder. But the real trial had happened months earlier, in inboxes, forums, living rooms, and sidewalks. This was just punctuation. Still, when the verdict came, I held my breath. Guilty, on all counts. Patricia didn't cry, but she exhaled, this long, sharp, almost metallic breath, the sound of a balloon deflating after trying to be a zeppelin. She glanced down once, then back at her lawyer, and nodded like someone signing off on her own disappearance. I wasn't happy. I didn't cheer, but I felt something move inside my chest, like a door that had been closed for too long, finally creaking open. The sentence wasn't prison, not technically. She received probation, fines, a lifetime ban from serving on any HOA board again, and 200 hours of mandated animal welfare education. She'd spend every weekend at the county shelter, cleaning cages, scrubbing floors, walking dogs she didn't deserve. The punishment wasn't about revenge. It was about placement, putting her somewhere she couldn't ignore the things she once thought were beneath her. The city followed suit. Within 2 months, the council passed Max's Law, a mandate requiring all public and private communal water sources to remain accessible in emergencies. Padlocks were banned. Emergency override valves became standard. New signs read, "Water is a right, not a request." City of Red Mesa. Other HOAs took notice. Some updated their policies quietly. Others dissolved entirely. One by one, people began asking the question that had long been avoided: what are we actually protecting? I moved, eventually, not out of spite, not even grief, just completion. Max's leash stayed hung by the door longer than it should have. His bowl came with me, though I never filled it again. I kept the folder Brian gave me too, not as evidence, but as reminder. I ended up in a little house north of Sedona, where the grass grows wild and uneven, and no one blinks if your trash bins stay out an extra day. There's no HOA, no bylaws, just neighbors, some deer, and a view that humbles the sun. The backyard has a fence now, one I built myself, crooked but sturdy, and next to the gate, a brass plaque I hammered into the soil: "Max, you were never just a dog. You were proof that some rules deserve to be broken." Sometimes I still get letters. Sometimes people recognize me at the grocery store or gas station. They don't ask for interviews anymore. They just nod, quietly, respectfully. Some cry. Most don't. But almost all of them say the same thing. Thank you. As if I did something noble. But the truth is simpler. I didn't choose this. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to save my dog. 1 year later, almost to the day, a package arrived at my new doorstep. No return address. Inside was a small canvas painting, a watercolor of Max, lying in the shade of our old driveway. Tongue out, eyes bright, body whole. Behind him stood a silver faucet, gently running. Clear water spilled onto green grass that never used to grow there. A handwritten note was tucked beneath it. My daughter watched your video. She asked why the lady wouldn't give the dog water. I didn't have an answer. So we made this. For you. For him. For all of us, El Hernandez and Ava, age 8. I hung the painting in the kitchen. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and the wind moves just right through the open window, I swear I hear the familiar click of paws on tile. Not loud, not sad, just home.